Welcome back to another quick edit here on Freewheel Photos. Today we are going to take a look at this image of my daughter. I photographed this many years ago when I was still very new to photography, but there's something about this expression and the beauty of working with photos, especially older photos, which is what I've been doing over the past couple days, is I learned that I was actually capturing moments that I care about. And this image, I never actually exported from Lightroom when I was using that. So it is what it is. And that's why today I want to go ahead and give it a quick edit just to stylize it. I think that it's exposed well, but we can do a little bit more. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and activate Brilliance AI and we'll see what it gives us. And I like that it just gives us a really great saturation platform to work off of. And then I'm also going to come down here to tone and color, and we're going to play with some camera profiles today because sometimes I think that you can get a different look that you weren't really expecting to see by playing with the camera profiles. And part of me wants to go with one of these portrait profiles. Although I do like the landscape look that was coming right out of the camera, the DCP here. So maybe I will go with landscape. Let me just compare that with on-one portrait. I actually like on-one portrait a little bit more, so I'm going to go with that. That's purely subjective, but I do recommend that when you're playing around and experimenting, you do exactly what I just did and take a look and see what on-one can give you. So what else do I need to do here? Well, I think the image got overall a little too bright. And what I know about the camera profile for on-one portrait and probably all portrait camera profiles is it brightens your images just a little bit. So what I could do is just pull down on the exposure, and that's going to bring us back into a wheelhouse that I think is more suitable for this overall look. And then I can even pull down on the highlights and maybe bring my midtones down a little bit as well, and then bring my shadows down. And now I'm noticing that it's a little too dark for my taste, and I'm not using a histogram for this. I'm just eyeballing it based off of what I think looks good. So here is what we started with, and here is where we've gone so far. Now, I am noticing there was a lot of contrast in the original image, and I don't have as much of that contrast, especially like in the face. And I'm not sure if I really needed it or if it was something that's adding value. So I think I'm okay with losing that contrast, but that is something you should be aware of when you are working in this manner. Camera profiles will change some of that contrast in your overall image, and then you may have to recall that either using the contrast slider, which I don't fully recommend, or using the local adjustments tab to paint in that contrast, either by darkening down shadows and painting over the areas where you need those shadows to be a little bit darker. Let me give you an example of that. So I'll just add the adjustment here, and then I'm just going to pull negative exposure on my shadows with a brush that's relatively small. I'm just going to go ahead and paint over these areas right here. It's going to look a little wonky at first, and the reason for that is I'm painting 100% opacity into this shadowed area. And I don't think that this is what I will ultimately do for the image, but I just want to showcase how you could bring back contrast if you lost it. So now what I'll do is just go ahead and pull down on the opacity until it fades in to about a place where it looks more natural and is bringing, some benefit to the image. And even that is still a little too strong for my personal taste. So I'll just pull down on this. You could also balance it by pulling up on the shadow slider so it's not such a strong adjustment. So turning this off, turning it on. With it on right now, I could walk away from this image and be completely content, but I don't think that this particular image needs it. You let me know in the comment section if you would leave this or if you would turn it off. But I think I'm going to personally turn it off because I don't feel like I need that extra dodge and burn look for this particular image. I want it to be a brighter, more energetic type of image because of the facial expression. And she's at an amusement park riding a ride. So it should be a little bit more energetic. So now that I have that going just the way that I want, I have like this natural frame with I guess these are the guardrails to keep people from walking in and getting kicked by a bunch of kids dangling their feet when these little swings start spinning around. That's a natural frame, and that was kind of the intent I was working on framing. I don't think I need this information up here at the top though. So this is going to lend itself for a crop. So I'm going to hit the letter C, and we will go ahead and work. I'm using a 5x7. I may just go to a custom crop. I don't do that often, but 5x7 actually seems to be working quite well by cropping off the top there. And I'm putting her more on the left or the center and the right thirds here, keeping her more over on the right side of the frame, and then letting her left hand come into this left third. Now I can, obviously exaggerate that. I feel like that's out of balance. This is more in balance for the entire frame. Personal preference, but that's what I feel. So I'm going to go with it. And then I'm just going to crop this in a little bit. I like the pink border at the top, and then her face being framed between these two pink, fuzzy looking or out of focus brackets there. So I'm going to go ahead and commit that. And I like where this photo is going overall. I think that it can be darkened down on the sides. So there's a few ways you could do that. You could just come in, add an adjustment, hit the letter M to get the masking bug. And then I can come over to center or shape and then select reflected gradient. And I already have a negative exposure. So I'm just going to click one time on the image. And then if I rotate this around, you can see what the effect is doing. And if I hit the letter O, you can really see it. Anywhere that you see white, it's going to actually apply the adjustment. And anywhere you see black, the adjustment will not be applied. Now, what's cool about the reflected gradient is it allows you to independently work with a linear in a linear method across the entire image. And I love what it's doing on the left side of the image, probably around here. All right. And I'll just pull this out so it's not impacting our hand entirely. And then I'm going to come over to the right side and I'm going to pull this out. And this is where the reflected gradient really does shine. If you have something that is parallel that needs to be the adjustment, you want to run it parallel, you can use the reflected gradient, and you can really move these back and forth as much as you want. There is a limit, right? That's as far left as I can move this one, but you can really move these to position it where you need it to. And then you can feather using the feather tool here. And I really love working this way because it allows me to figure out like, okay, where's the center focus? And then I can just pull in the attention. And this is relatively subtle. Like if you didn't watch me add this to the image, you probably wouldn't really notice it. But if I turn it off, you can really see. And then if I turn it back on, you can notice it again. Now, going back and forth like that, I do realize that that's a little stronger than I probably need it to be. So I'm just going to pull down on the opacity. Opacity for me is probably one of my most used adjustment features inside of ON1. I guess that just comes from my Photoshop background, but I do like to use opacity more than just adjusting the sliders themselves. So if I hold down the backslash key, here is the before image and here is the after image. I think that this looks really, really well. I didn't do a whole lot of extra editing. All I did was activate some Brilliance AI and then threw on a reflected gradient and we went from there. So hopefully you found some value in the content. If you did, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe if you are new. If you want to learn more about using ON1 Photo Raw, consider signing up for a training call. Down in the description box below, you'll find a link to do so. If you want to save some money when you shop over at the ON1 website, consider using my coupon code FreeWillPhotos20. It'll save you some money at checkout. I make a small commission from everyone who uses it, but that's at no extra charge to you, and it's a great way of supporting this channel. I thank everyone who uses that code. So, with that being said, until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.